Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about my thoughts on the Variety interview with Melissa Barrera and the things she had to say in that. And my God, it was a doozy. Like, I'm not shocked or surprised to tell you the complete truth. Like, I'm not. A lot of people on the internet are. That's because y'all don't pay attention to the things this woman say. I've told you before, she is sneaky with her wordplay and she is very opinionated. However, she's crossed the line into acting like she is this megastar diva in like delusional state. Like, and I'm not even trying to be rude. Like, she has literally crossed the line to delusion and everything. She's acting like she's a huge megastar and a diva. And she's not even really that famous, to be completely honest with you, and stuff. Like, she's really not. But for her to trash the entire Scream 7 cast, and I mean all of them and everything, and not only that, but like the whole question about Jenna Ortega and this and that, it's like at this point, she's done. I think she's done in Hollywood. Like, she if she wasn't blacklisted before, oh, she's blacklisted like Ray Fisher is now, or Monique and everything from the Parkers television show back in the early 2000s. She sounds very bitter, and she has every right to feel bitter. But the things she is saying and the things she is not saying, that's two completely different things. And she has, I could always now, many people pretty much only know her from Scream and everything. And whenever you ask some of her fans, oh, they're like, oh, yeah, she was in Abigail. Well, Abigail is what she was in after Scream, after she got fired. But that's really all people really know her from. However, if you're a real fan of hers, you know she's done stuff before then. See, she was born and raised in Mexico. Then when she was around 18, 19 years old, she came to America, went to college, and started studying filmmaking, Hollywood acting, stuff like that. And then she went back home to Mexico. And from there, she starred in tons of telenovelas and everything. A telenovela is basically what we would call over in America a soap opera and everything. For the most part, people really only first knew of her from Scream. Because when you start asking her fans, they don't even bring up the telenovela stuff. But there's another show they don't bring up, Vita. After Scream, I was on Hulu and I saw something called Vita. And I'm all like, is that Melissa Barrera and everything? I'm like, oh, it is. I'm like, oh, also, it's that woman from that one Walking Dead short. And everything. I'm like, okay, I'll check this out. I've already talked about this show and reviewed it and stuff like that. It's a pretty okay show and everything. And it stars Melissa Barrera as a co-star. And so this is what she was in before she was ever in Scream. Now, Melissa Barrera has that true Hollywood American dream. She's a foreigner from another country, came on over and, made it semi-big in Hollywood and everything. She got cast in a television show where she was a co-lead. But like I said before, when I reviewed that show and whenever I reviewed the Scream stuff, her acting in the first two seasons was not good. It was on the level of Scream 5 acting. See, here's the thing about her acting. It's very inconsistent. She's a much better actress now. So Hollywood wasn't gonna really take a chance on her, period. But then after Vita got canceled and everything, she got the breakout starring role of a lifetime. taking over the Scream franchise from Neve Campbell playing Sam Carpenter. Scream 5 was a requel, and so Neve Campbell originally was going to star in it, but she didn't want to be a part of it because Wes Craven had died. And Wes Craven directed, the first four and everything. And so she didn't want to do it without him. But, Spyglass and Radio Silence, they promised her, hey, look, we're going to respect Wes Craven, this and that, blah, 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 blah. And we all know how that turned out. They basically just copied the first two Scream movies and stuff. But then something weird happened. Neve Campbell had a tiny role in Scream 5, and she had a mentor role in everything, which pissed a lot of the fans like myself off, because we didn't understand why the movie is focusing on a brand new character, just who happens to be the daughter of Billy Loomis. Keep that in mind too, because I'm going to circle back to that. After Neve wasn't paid that much in the fifth, she bowed out and everything. Gave everybody her good graces. Keep that in mind, because I'm going to circle back to that and everything. There's a lot of stuff to circle back to now. So Spyglass, who owns the Scream franchise along with Paramount, they got pissed because she spoke up about the Israel-Hamas war and everything. And so, she said that she was either the first or one of the first to speak up about it. But she said, it was pretty rough afterwards. Now, her comments that got her fired and everything. Not Radio Science, but Spyglass said it was anti-Semitic. But when people read it, it just doesn't sound anti-Semitic. And I can't remember word for word what she said, but it was a lot. Basically, her country went through some bad stuff and then they overcame it and they will overcome it too. But then she started using terms like saying Palestine or Gaza is basically like a concentration camp for the entire country. And, what Israel is doing to them, and use a bunch of other terms and this and that. And that pissed off Spyglass because they are Jewish. And they didn't like that. And she also, this is the one thing, and I haven't seen this comment yet, but Chris from 3C Films, he posted about this years ago when this happened, because it's been 3 years, right? And he said that she spelled U.S. and Israel with dollar signs. And that probably what triggered the algorithm and everything to make it look anti-Semitic. And this is when I say, if she actually did that, she is very sneaky with her wordplay and everything. And so, because she said basically when it comes to the Israel government and what's going on with the Hamas war and everything, you can't trust Western news coverage and everything. Because you can, depending on which one it is. But if it's like ABC News, like what I was watching for those 2 years during the war, they cover both sides. They cover what happened in Israel and they covered what happened in Palestine and everything. And so for her to say the news media only wants to cover one side of the war, but never give the perspective of the Palestinian side, that is a complete lie. A lot of people who tend to be really huge advocates and everything, they tend to not always want to believe the truth that is out there and only believe what they want to see. And so, but nevertheless, she got fired. And so because of that, the people who were making Scream spent millions having to rewrite the entire movie to write her out. They brought back Neve Campbell and Matthew Lillard, and they even brought back Mason Gooding and Jasmine Savoy Brown. And I will circle back to that because that's really huge. But then Jenna Ortega left the project, and so did Christopher London, which this interviewer does not want to say why Christopher London left. Christopher London left Not because he stood up for Melissa, but because Melissa fans and fake fans threatened him and his family life online. Ever since she's been fired and everything, her fans and her fake fans have gone nuts on Twitter and everything, just attacking people left and right who are still Scream supporters and everything. To the point where Scream fans got tired of all this and they started making fun of them. And it's been a constant war online between Scream fans and Melissa fans and everything. And so now it's going on both sides and everything. And I've said this before, when her fans are threatening people online, that's not going to help her at all. But one thing she did not do, similar to Zack Snyder, like she didn't like dismiss it. She didn't say nothing. She didn't tell them to stop threatening people. She didn't tell them to stop harassing people. Nothing. Because she have embraced the new fandom and everything. Because a celebrity needs fans to survive in Hollywood and everything. So during this time, she said that it was difficult for those 3 years. She didn't know she was going to work. She almost got fired from her agent and this and that, and nobody wanted to work with her in Hollywood. Now, this is true. See, here's the thing. One of the reasons why celebrities don't really mention things about politics or wars or social issues is because they don't want the consequences. These studios don't like backlash. They want butts in seats or people watching their stuff on their TV. That can't happen if people are pissed at that celebrity and stuff. And so Hollywood pays attention to stuff like that because it makes the news rounds and stuff. They're not going to want to work with somebody who is very vocal. Like, let's get back to Ray Fisher. Now, the interviewer, normally when I read an article, I don't like to look up and see who the interviewer is because I could care less because I don't read these news outlets like that. However, the title of like his article was interesting. It talked about how Melissa was fired. I can't remember what the exact article name is. I'm not in front of the computer. Something about fired for having an opinion or something like that, or canceled or something like that, and she's fighting her way back to Hollywood. I thought that was an interesting title because that sounds like whoever wrote this is a actual fan of hers. Which makes me think, how opinionated is this article going to be? So, the person in question is Marlo Stern, and he is the chief correspondent for Variety. And when you read this, and as I was reading it, everything was kind of like legit at first. Like, okay, this is an actual interview. But then he started to bring up Scream because in this new Broadway play that she's in, because the television show she was just in got canceled. I'll circle back to that later. It got canceled. She's on Broadway now. And there's a line in there that says, Sydney has to die or something like that. She chuckled and said this happened before she joined. So, okay, fine, legit. But then the interviewer came back around and said, Scream 7 sucked. And right then and there, I'm like, oh, this is a hit piece. This is a hit piece. And he wanted to get her in a gotcha kind of moment. And boy, he got her all right. And he started using some terminology and she went right along for it. So he basically said Scream 7 sucked and this and that, right? Now, I've given my opinion about Scream 7. I said, and I stand by what I say, it's a good but flawed movie. It was a good movie like some of the worst ones, like Scream 3 and Scream 6. But there are elements in it that are enjoyable, but it is heavily flawed. You know, it's like Guy Busick just can't write. And I will circle back around to Guy Busick. But anyways, it's a good, bad movie. Let's put it like that. But it's not horrible, it's not terrible, and it does not suck. So this tells you right here and there, he's just a screen basher and he's a fan of hers. And so it's basically like they was having chit chat time, you know what I'm saying? Like two friends just trashing something. And that's exactly what happened. So basically, she came out and said, the movie is basically nostalgia bait because of what happened and blah, 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 blah. And it's not very good. Now, first things first, this is where the delusion sets in. Not just with hers, but her fans. Because I've been seeing people saying this online ever since this article came out. If you watch Scream 5 and Scream 6, and if you're a real Scream fans, you know those two movies are nostalgia bait. Everything from being a requel. They basically retold the first two movies. Everything down to when the opening kill, Jenna Ortega's character is wearing an outfit similar to CC Becker and everything, holding the knife, taking the phone call. Everything from Stu's house being the third party act and having a party there. Mindy dressing similar to Randy, talking similar to Randy, having Randy's type of personality, and getting attacked on the couch, which is something we never saw in the first Scream movie, so they decided to show it here. And then, of course, there is none other than Billy Loomis in hallucination form, because he is the father of Sam Carpenter. That is the biggest nostalgia bait there is. De-aging him, and only she can speak and talk to him and see him and everything. That is nostalgia bait. Plain and simple as that. Then here comes the second movie. More nostalgia bait. They're in college, just like the second movie. And for whatever reason, the entire main cast has to go to wherever the new students are going. That don't make no sense. I can understand the twins wanted to go to the same college, but why is Tara going to the same college as them? And of course, Sam has to follow. And oh wait, Gail Weathers is there. And not only that, but the killers are out for revenge. They're family members of the killer from the fifth movie. That is the motive of like the second movie. It is nostalgia bait. Just like that of the seventh movie. So for them to say that it wasn't, they're lying. Then she went on to say she doesn't believe that the movie made that much money and everything. They must have lied about the numbers. First of all, if Paramount lied about the numbers, they would be in trouble with the government. And it is literally against the law to lie about the numbers, that how much your movie makes and everything. She is bitter because Scream 7 made more money than that of Scream 5 and 6, the ones that she starred in. And then when you do the whole inflation thing, because her fans, they're all like, yeah, I think she's telling the truth, because I read about something in the 90s about like inflation and everything. And when I went there was nobody in the movie theater and everything. Yeah, I went and saw the movie too, and there was really nobody there. But the movie still made a lot of money. In fact, when you take in for inflation and all that, Scream 1 still made the most and everything. But in terms of just what it is now and its open box office theatrical run and everything, this movie made more money than all of the movies in the franchise. That's just how it is. Nobody lied. Nobody faked the numbers. She is bitter. And for her to lie about this is really showing how immature she is. And this is why I don't like interviews that I have to read online. I want to see it in a live, like, podcast stream. You know what I'm saying? I want to see how they're saying things, what exactly they say, and nothing edited out. Then the interviewer decided to use a term, scabby, and everything. He basically say that the actors from the previous movies, they joined this movie, and that was a pretty scabby move, crossing a picket line and everything. Now he used that term. She never used that term, but she agreed to what he said. Oh, 100%. If she's agreeing to what he said, that means she's agreeing with everything he said, which means she thinks that everybody else who joined that movie is scabby. Now, this picture right here is my old video I made. This is why it has people's race on there, because I made a movie saying that, after Jenna and Melissa left, and originally the Meek twins were not in Scream 7, but later were. I said Scream 7 went back to white. Basically, it went back to how the franchise used to be in the really early stages of having an all-white cast. And then once in a while, they'll sprinkle in a person of color. And I said, Scream 6 is the most diverse, Scream movie there is. And we'll never see that again. So this is why it has people's races on there. But these are all the people that they are calling scabby. These innocent people who has not done nothing wrong to them. And for her first of all, for him to do it is just low down. But for her to do it is just despicable. Like, she's an actress, they are actors, they're there to get paid, she's there to get paid. She is pissed because she wasn't in that movie. But she shouldn't take it out on them. And I've said this before, Scream will always be Neve Campbell's franchise. And I will circle back around to Neve a little bit later. And to cross a picket line, let's not forget she did the exact same thing. When Neve left the project because she was not paid what she is owed, because she has carried this franchise on her back for 30 years, and Neve Campbell is a hard-working actress. She does not play the Hollywood game, which is one reason why she left Hollywood after a while. And this is one reason why she takes the project she does, and the reason why she don't do certain things like nudity and sex scenes and stuff like that. But Melissa can't say the same thing, because watch Vita, you see everything. Anyways, Neve deserves her money, and when she didn't get it, she left. And Melissa and everybody from Scream 6 still were in Scream 6. They crossed that imaginary picket line and everything. And did they care? No, because they wanted to be in the movie and they wanted to get paid, and they was under contract. And that is how Hollywood works, But Neve Campbell did the classy thing. She called them up, supposedly, and told them, hey, look, it's okay. Go be in the movie. I understand how Hollywood works. Don't miss out on this opportunity for me and everything. Like, this is my fight. And that's how you do it. 3 years later, Melissa still can't do that. If she truly cared, she would have protested and everything. Said something online about Neve not getting paid and how it's wrong, this and that. But she didn't want to hurt her career. She did not stand up for her co-star and everything. And I've only heard nothing but nice stuff about Neve Campbell. I've never heard nothing bad whatsoever. And so then the interviewer, said that, did anybody reach out to you? Jenna, left the project, this and that. And this is where it gets really interesting. She shakes her head and said that's not the reality of things and stuff like that. Then she goes on to say, so basically she went on to say that DMing her and giving support was not good enough for her. That she expects them to say things out loud, and basically said that their words had no action to them, which means exactly who messaged her in private. Most likely Jenna Ortega and Jasmine Savoy Brown. Maybe Matt, I think it was his name, Mason Gooding. Maybe he did too, I don't know. But you know Jenna and you know Jasmine had to. But she's basically saying that because they didn't say it out loud, they didn't say it like online and like, a post everybody can read, or didn't say it in an interview, that their words have no meaning, no action, no this and that. That is throwing them under the bus and a huge slap in their face. Because Jasmine has literally said when Scream 7 came out, because fans were attacking her, her and Melissa are still friends and they still talk to this day. Jasmine and Jenna still follow Melissa on Instagram and she follows them as well. But she doesn't follow Mason for whatever reason. But the fact that she said everybody who returned, that includes Jasmine, is scabby. And everybody who didn't vocally speak out to support her, their words have no meaning, meaning Jenna and meaning Jasmine. What in the world? That is literally a slap in the face to your friends. She's expecting them to kiss her, but she's expecting them to stand up for her and cost them their jobs and their opportunity and their money. That is not how Hollywood works. When Ray Fisher spoke out against like what was going on with him and the DCEU, none of his co-stars had his back. Now, when I say she's tricky with wordplay and she's shady, and when I said this article did not take me by surprise, it's because she has trashed people before. The entire Scream fandom, I think it was last year, she did an interview again, and she compared Scream fans to that of R. Kelly fans and Michael Jackson fans. The Scream fandom lit up and was pissed. They're all like, whoa, you're going too far with this. Because in case you don't know, R. Kelly is rotting in jail for underage abuse. She's basically saying, and here's the thing, when she said that, I'm all like, what exactly is she trying to point out? There's one or two ways this can go. Either she's saying that when like something bad happens, fans turn their head, like with R. Kelly and stuff, and to an extent Michael Jackson. When he got accused, fans just turned their head. When R. Kelly found guilty, fans still turned their head and they still support him. So she's basically mentioning, I guess, like Spyglass. Her firing, fans turned the other way. Or, now that she's done this new interview, it now makes me wonder if she's actually talking about herself. She got fired. She wants people to stand up for her and want people to boycott and this and that, and not that many people are doing it, and she feels like, oh, y'all just turned y'all back on me and stuff. So like, why did Jenna leave the project? You know what I'm saying? Like, I still believe it's a combination of scheduling conflict and the whole Melissa situation. But here's the important thing most people don't ask. And this is when I say you have to think logically. Why not Jasmine and Jenna? Why weren't they fired for their support of Palestine, but Melissa was? That is the one thing that's always been on my mind. Like, why her, not them? Jasmine and Jenna have both been vocal about their support of Palestine. Yet, Paramount and Spyglass never fired them. Jenna left and Jasmine was asked to be brought back. But Melissa was the only one fired. I think it's because of how Melissa says things. She says things without a filter, using terms like concentration camp and this and that, and it must have really triggered something in the Spyglass creators and stuff because they are Jewish, whereas Jasmine doesn't use such terminology like that. So no, I do not believe she was fired because of her for her supporting Palestine. I believe she was fired because of how she said it. And we really don't know what really goes on behind the scenes and stuff, of how she really and truly is. I mean, if she's over here like agreeing that everybody from Scream 7 is scabby and this and that, and saying that like private messages have no meaning when they have no action and stuff behind those words, then nobody really truly knows why she was truly fired. It could have been complaints. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? That could have also led to her firing, but we will never know. Also saying that, her cast didn't reach out to her and this and that publicly, not privately, because they did privately, that's just going to cause them to get attacked online again, like Jasmine's. I don't know why she keeps doing this crap. But she did say one person that did speak out publicly was a guy named Boots Riley and everything. And he is a writer, producer, and he does music. And he's a huge advocate. And so he reached out to her and everything. Now here's the thing: since she's been fired, he has made 2 movies, or 1 movie, 1 television show, and he hasn't cast her in nothing. But she loves him and everything, and he's the only person that supposedly supported her in her time of need. However, I noticed something. She did not mention Radio Silence or Guy Busick with the Abigail movie, because of the simple fact, when she got fired and nobody wanted to hire her because of what she said and because of her acting skills and stuff, Radio Silence and that of Guy Busick, who had worked with her on Scream, they had her play the lead in the Abigail movie. Now, I like the Abigail movie. I own it on DVD. It's a really good movie. But all those Melissa fans didn't necessarily come out to go see it. But here's the thing. They worked with her on Scream. They knew what had happened, and they was willing to work with her again. Yet she doesn't mention that and doesn't thank them. They literally stuck their necks out to help save her career. And the craziest thing about Radio Silence and the whole Abigail thing and Guy Busick is Radio Silence even said they love working with her, and they know she got fired from Scream, and basically they help look out for her and stuff, and she couldn't even mention them, but yet she mentioned Boots Raleigh and everything. It's like, why not give them a shout out? They literally tried to help and save her career. And she came and give them a thank you. And I've never watched Copenhagen Test, but like fans apparently did not like it. It had mixed to negative reviews and got canceled after just 1 season. Once again, they stuck their necks out for her, and she doesn't thank them, but she does mention she basically took that project for money because she needed the money and she needed to do something, and so she just took it. That is some shady mess you just don't mention until many decades later. She also stated that she's going to start her own production company, which at this point, Hollywood's not going to hire her no more. She might as well do it herself. I mean, if she's able to do this, then good for her, but it's going to have to be funded. She can't fund it by herself, and people are going to want to work with her and stuff. However, she said something that was totally messed up. She said that she only wants to hire people who are pro-Palestine. Why segregate like that? That is supremacy. That is no different than, say, one group who doesn't like another group and doesn't want nothing to do with them. That is literally like, supremacy and everything, like white supremacy and stuff. That's like saying, oh, this is a whites only bathroom or a whites only water fountain. But it did not do her no favors. She's pissing off an entire fandom, a fandom that has been with the Scream franchise for 30 years. She's a newcomer in this franchise, or was in the franchise, and she's acting like she is the one who dominated it and everything. And that is because her fans have literally said that without Melissa, the Scream franchise would never survive and everything. It survived just well without her. It survived for 4 movies before her, and it survived 1 movie without her. That's a total of 5 movies without her and stuff. That movie has survived. And that Neve Campbell has literally supported and carried on her back. So she needs to stop listening to her fans. And she needs to wake up and get back into reality. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye. Neve Campbell playing Sam Carpenter.